It is the Cougs Conference, it appears right now, as they won it last year, regular season, and trying to win it again this year. So as you look at this team, is it as simple as saying that, look, they've been to the Final Four under Kelvin Sampson. Their offensive prowess makes them a little bit different, raises the ceiling a little bit for them?
Yeah, their offensive efficiency. This is the most efficient offense that Houston has had in the last 25 years. They're low turnover. They force a ton of turnover, so they've got like a +5 turnover margin. They're an excellent offensive rebounding team, so as long as they get a shot every time down, they got a 40% chance of getting a second shot, and those are usually high percentage shots. But really what you have to deal with in Houston is facing their relentlessness for 40-plus minutes. And it's really difficult to play against them. And you're thinking about how they're coming at you instead of how you can attack them. And that's a big factor. I think this is a national championship quality team. Last year, they were Final Four quality. And had Jamal Shead not gotten injured against Duke with that ankle, where they put him out of the game in the first half, I think they would have made the Final Four. I think Houston would have been there last year.
They're a Final Four good team, national championship good team. They impose their identity on the game. They rebound, they defend. It's their versatility to me that makes a difference this year. They can play big, they can play small. You can't simulate what they do in your preparation to play this team. So in the NCAA tournament that second night, when you got 36 hours to prepare, that is a blanking problem.
Yeah, so, Seth and I got a chance yesterday to do some media, and I got asked the question about, what do you think about the success of Houston? And then when you start thinking about their record in the Big 12 play over the last 2 years, they're 29-4 in the last 2 years. And 3 of those 4 losses have been one-possession games. I don't call that success. I call that dominance. And I think that's dominance that can translate, and it's portable. And the way they shoot the rock this year, you've been on them, Drea, the whole year. They're national championship team. That's what their ceiling is.
Yeah, I've been high on Houston since the start of the season. I had them in my Final Four since we began the season because of their shooting. They've always been known for their defense. You can't replicate it, like you said, Seth. It's so hard to replicate that level of defensive energy and intensity in your practices, so you can't plan for it. So especially at the start of the game, I remember playing against some teams, and the game starts, and it takes time to adjust to what that team is doing. That's this Houston team. Like, teams start the game, and they're on their heels right away because you can't prepare for the way that this Houston team plays, and they have the three-point shooting to go with it. It's really impressive.
You know what's funny, though? The one team that I do think can simulate it in practice is Iowa State.
Yes.
Because they play similarly. Now they're shorthanded without Curtis Jones and Keyshawn Gilbert. That's a problem. But they can simulate it because they both trap. They don't do it exactly the same. But Iowa State has a lot of similarities with Houston.
Typically, when you talk about the Big 12, everybody is chasing Kansas, but the Jayhawks have fallen on some hard times. They lost to Utah by 7, and that was nothing compared to what happened to them at BYU on Tuesday night. Got absolutely annihilated, 91-57. The last 2 years in conference play for this program that has dominated the Big 12. You see, I don't know if they're overrated or not because they're in the middle of the pack right now.
They're barely rated.
Where they're rated. And, one of the things that happened is that Kansas had Houston beat. They had them beat. And then Houston pulled it out of the fire, won in double overtime at Allen Fieldhouse. And since then, the Jayhawks have lost 5 out of 8. So you look at this right now, what do you think's wrong with Kansas?
Look at Kansas. They were the standard in the Big 12 forever. All right, and then the last 2 years, NIL and the transfer portal came in, and all of a sudden that leveled the playing field because programs in this league had to decide they wanted to have a basketball team or a basketball program. They decided to have a basketball program. So they've leveled the playing field. But the biggest thing is, in the portal era, Kansas has done a good job getting the right guys. And what I mean by that is, see, when you recruit in the portal, it's like speed dating. Now, I've never done speed dating, but you've got to make quick decisions. And a lot of times the market is moved by the agents.
Yep.
And Kansas's evaluations in the portal have not been good because it's more transactional, except for Zeke Mayo, who understands what it is to be a Jayhawk, a Lawrence kid. Putting on that uniform is special. The other guys they've gotten in the portal have not performed. A.J. Storrs, 16 points a game. He's averaging 6 points a game. Rylan Griffin, 11 points a game. He's averaging 6 points a game. Not that they're not good players. Not that they're not good people. They just haven't been a good fit. And this roster right now, the way it's constructed, isn't a typical Kansas roster.
Last year, they had, when comparing it to last year, they were 21-6 when Kevin McCullough got hurt. And he really got shut down for the rest of the season. I don't think these two things are the same. Like earlier this season, they beat Michigan State. They beat Duke. They beat the brakes off Iowa State. They haven't performed well on the road. That's been a difference in this team. I agree that their A.J. Storr and Ryland Griffin have not performed to the level that everybody expected. But Kansas is better than they played in that Utah-BYU road trip. They're far better than that. I think they can still put it together and be a very good team down the stretch. I don't think they're national championship good.
Are you alarmed by this? Because, things happen over the course of a long season, right? You're going to hit little lulls. Are you bothered by this long-term problem, or can Kansas get it together?
I think they could potentially get it together. But, we had a conversation already at the beginning of the year, all of us did, about how we were going to approach this new age in college basketball around NIL, things being operationalized, more professionalism around the sport because we're paying players now. Could we be a little bit more critical of players? Well, if we're going to do that, and it doesn't all harp upon him, but I think I can get Hunter Dickinson in ball screens, and I got one leg. I'm being honest with you. Like, I watched the way they run him in ball screens, and it seems at times like he's a big liability on the court, and he's one of their highest paid guys NIL-wise. And also, when you think about this team doesn't create any havoc defensively. They only force 10.9 turnovers per game. That's the lowest in the Bill Self era. So they don't get any points off their defense. They struggle in ball screen defense, and BYU made 13 threes. It just, look, Christian Brown talked about it. He plays for the Denver Nuggets. He wants people they play for the name on the front of their jersey, not the name on the back.
Yeah, I just think, we talk about, this is the tweet. You talked about Christian Brown. Play the guys who care about having Kansas across their chest. Multiple former players have spoken out about the way that Kansas is playing this season. To me, Jay, you mentioned Kevin McCullough, and he, leading scorer last season, did so much for the team, but he was also a glue guy. Like, when I'm watching Kansas this season, I don't see anyone on the team that pulls everyone together. Like you mentioned the loss against Houston in overtime. Houston pulled together. Kansas fell apart. And I think when you talk about some of these teams that Kansas beat early in the season, Duke being one of them, Duke has gotten better. Kansas has gotten worse. And that is a big thing with this team. There's just nothing holding them together. I'm watching the BYU game. This is coming off of a loss to Utah. They start the BYU game with slow cuts. This is the first possession of the game. Walking the ball down, even if it's pseudo offense, you have to cut hard. Come off the screen, light on the cut for KJ Adams, and he kind of goes off the ball screen. Kevin, they don't really even shoot. They don't even take a real ball screen. They don't come off the ball screen hard. There's no energy for the first possession of the game. If you're coming off of a loss, you have to start the game with energy. I don't see that with Kansas.
The three upperclassmen have underperformed. If you look at their stats compared to the past years, Hunter Dickinson, KJ Adams, and DeJuan Harris's numbers are significantly different. They need to be better because they're the guys that stir the drink.
They got the Cowpokes, 14.5-point favorite. They'll tip off at 4 o'clock Eastern today. You know what? You look at these teams right now. You got all the Big 12 teams coming in there that have the opportunity to get into the field. But it's Michigan State. As you look at the Big 10 around the country, which Big 10 team do you think is built for success in the tournament?
Well, we would start with Michigan State, and I've got to give you credit because we had a few.
I'll give you credit on Houston. I'll give you credit on Houston. Yeah, okay, same page.
You talked about this Michigan State team, and I know you show like the behind the back pass by Danny Wolf, and he can hit a step back three for Michigan, but for Michigan State, it's not the flashy plays. They got 3 offensive rebounds in the stretch of a minute and a half to seal the game. For me, it's not the flashy plays that Michigan State makes. It's the hard-nosed, tough way that they play that makes them so difficult to face in March.
I mean, they struggle to shoot from the three-point line, but their offense is still one of the most efficient offenses in the country because they get out in transition. And when you lead the Big Ten in rebounds and free throws attempted, Seth, and then you shoot 80% from the free throw line, that's how they close out games. They beat you with the same intensity on the defensive end as well.
Look, I love Michigan State. I love their depth. I love their transition games back, but we can't not ignore
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, efficient, pace of play, spacing. They're playing 5 out. Tunji's an absolute matchup nightmare. They share the ball. They can defend. This Wisconsin team is different. It's different. And it's really hard as a coach to flip your style of play this long into your coaching career. And that's what Greg Gardner's done. It's 5 out. It's ball screen continuity. They shoot 39% from the three-point line. They shoot about 49% of their shots from the three. They don't turn it over. They set their defense. I think Wisconsin is a very tough out. But I think Wisconsin, Michigan State, and Michigan all are going to be tough outs.
Who's the toughest one, though? You got to choose one. You get to bet on one
I
horse.
think you said Wisconsin.
If I had to pick one, I would say it would be Michigan State because they have more different guys on any given night that can take over a game, and one really special guy in Jace Richardson, who's only a freshman.
Yeah, I think they've proven over the course of the season that they're the toughest team. And one of the things that I've respected most about the way the season's been handled by both the players and the coaching staff is early on in the season, I didn't think they were going to be this good, honestly, because they don't shoot it. Yeah, I think they have good shooters. Like, they make shots in practice. All these guys have made shots throughout the course of their career, but they haven't been making shots this year from the perimeter. But this year, they're getting to the foul line, and that's a departure. You mentioned, they lead the league in free throw attempts. But that's not been the way they've played over the past several years, maybe the past 10 years. This year, they've adjusted, and they're getting the ball into the paint. They're getting into traffic, and they're finishing plays through contact. And they're getting to the line, and that's been a big difference in this year's team. But Michigan, even though they lost last night, I think Michigan State's a little bit better. I think Michigan's still very good. I'm just not sure how many title contenders the Big Ten has. They've got Final Four contenders. But I'm not sure how many title contenders they have.
Is Maryland in that group?
Maryland is up there.
All of their losses have been close games.
Yeah. I mean, Jacoby Gillespie is an outstanding player. Derek Queen is the real deal. Did you see that baseline move he made the other night? Oh, it was absurd. It was like Elijah type footwork.
Why isn't he being spoken about more in the national picture?
Because Cooper Flagg went to Duke.
I hear it.
And Reese and Queen together, that front court with Reese and Queen together, that is one of the toughest front courts in all of college basketball. Those guys are really good together, but Gillespie's the key.
He's really good. Yeah, they're legit. But still, like, are we thinking titles with those guys?
Yeah.
That's kind of a difference.
How many in the Big,
it's all about
Big
the
Ten
bracket.
can win the title?
I don't. That's my point.
Say none.
Final Four. There are a couple of Final Four.
How many do you think can win the title?
I think Michigan State.
I think Michigan State can win the title because their preparation is so good that they can kind of manipulate the game in the NCAA tournament. He's done a great job in the NCAA tournament because of their preparation.